Am I? Am I here? Hey. Hey, everybody. What's going on? I heard somebody say the intro music is too loud. I don't know how to adjust it. So I'm thinking instead of the intro, do you guys see it says it's from countdownvideos.com or something, right? I just found a generic countdown video and I run it. That's to get as many people tuned in to see the live show as possible, in hopes that those people might decide that they want to give me a super chat or something, because people do that during the live show more than on a recorded show. But I was thinking I could just talk about I could go live and have a banner up that says the show hasn't started yet. And I could just tell you guys about the weather and stuff, because it's raining here in California. We've had a lot of weather. Somebody called in yesterday. So we got to talk about the weather. We have had a lot of weather here in California. So we have rain, yeah. And there was even a evacuation alert near me. So apparently it's going to be pretty bad. It doesn't seem, I'm looking outside right now. It's not going to kill me, I don't think. But we're having a lot of snow on the mountains and a lot of rain down where it's not mountains. Should I turn on the light? So I have news today. It might be the end. Financial apocalypse, which I've been talking about for so long, might be starting right now with this major bank collapse. One of the top 20 banks in the country looks like they're going down as of today. So I'll show you that news. In addition to, I'll definitely show you that. And we can talk about the economic future. Some numbers came in today. I think jobs aren't quite as strong as they thought. But this bank collapse, major bank collapse, is the story of the day as far as the financial news. So hopefully you're prepared for the financial apocalypse. You might have different ideas for what the best thing is for it. Bitcoin also getting creamed today. Bitcoin and Ethereum, big news in cryptocurrency world. They're really going after it. So I did tell you guys that crypto is definitely not a ride that goes straight up. It has some bumps along the way. So, but it doesn't mean it's going to go away for good. I'll tell you the news about Ethereum today and the authorities, which has caused a significant dip. I predicted in my 2023 predictions, I said that Bitcoin would crash down to 10,000. I said, because of the collapse of Tether. This doesn't have to do with Tether yet. Eventually it will. But what does that mean? That I don't have any Bitcoin? No, I still have it. I'm not selling it now. But I want to buy more if it does go down. So that'll be an opportunity. But we're talking about financial collapse for a long time. When is it going to really happen? A big bank failure, that can start a cascade effect, just like it has in cryptocurrency. Hey, shout out to Super Chat. Thanks, This Vagabond Life. I appreciate it. Thanks for the $10 Super Chat. Thanks for making us rank in the algorithm. Go ahead and like the video if you'd like. We're kind of starting from scratch on this show. I might do the show. Somebody told me I should do it not at the same time as Tim Pool. I'm trying to figure it out. I just started a brand new career, so I can tell you guys about that. I started a brand new career in side jobbing, so I can tell you guys how it's gone. I made it to this, and hopefully it frees me up to be less. Concerned about pissing people off by saying what I really think. But saying what you really think isn't profitable. Actually, That's not necessarily true. It depends on what you think. It depends on what you really think. If speaking your mind is profitable or not. I contend that for someone like me, who's really kind of in the middle on things, it's not. It's better to be an extremist. It was better for me when I said everything was fake. I used to believe that. It was better. It was better for me. That's what I used to really think. And now I don't. Now I don't think that anymore. So the ratings, right? So you can support the show with super chats. Thanks, Frying Pants. $20. She says, say what you think. Do you dare me? We'll see. I'm trying to set a record for decline in viewership or collapse in viewership just to see how many people I can piss off. I think people are concerned. People are concerned that I said that I wouldn't ban Drag Queen Story Hour, which is being super banned a bunch of places and causing some kind of backlash. It's a cultural issue. Just because I don't like banning things, even though I'm against you people doing strip shows in front of children, obviously. But I'm against banning things, kind of. So some people say, that's not for me. I need somebody who wants to really. And then some other people. Anyway, let me show you the Twitter hearings happened today. I'll play you a bunch of clips from that. I have an update on the situation in Mexico with the people who got killed. That's an interesting story. So I'll tell you guys the deets on that. I have different clips. I collected clips from the hearing and I listened to the hearing. I think the whole thing. And it was really upsetting. It was really upsetting the way Democrats are. The way Democrats are in particular, in this case. And I can be really critical of both sides. But in this case, Democrats are just awful. And the way they treated two respected journalists, particularly Matt Taibbi, was awful. It was just terrible. And the Twitter files did really reveal some stuff. And it resulted in these congressional hearings today. But you saw just an awful display of humanity from one side of the aisle on an issue where you would think everybody would care, like even people on the left would care about people being censored inappropriately by the government. But apparently not. So I'll play the clips. And the rest of the news. I have some Fauci news and stuff too. So if you want to support the show, go to buymeacoffee.com/lifttheveil. I'll put up the link once some more people get tuned in. And I'll check in with the chat and stuff. We'll just have a nice, cozy stream today. Okay. All right. So, on the other side of this. Okay. Cue musical intro. Boy, that's brilliant. I do think some things in the world are real. Like you guys. You guys are real. Most of you. Most of my listeners, I think, are not just in my head. I think I have the metrics to prove it. You've taken a leap of faith today. What is that sound? And I apologize if you take offense. I'm a little offended myself. Welcome to our show. Welcome to the future. What it is. Joining you live from sunny California. It's a beautiful day today. I'm your host, Nathan Stoltman. And I bring you the news. The real news. Yeah, yes, in as much as it's possible. What's real? That's the thing. I said I'd bring you the real news. What's real? You have to decide. The real news, big news, like financial news, this bank's going to fail. I don't know much about it. It's trending on Twitter and people are talking about it. Let me show you a graph and what some people are saying. Silicon Valley Bank, they're called. One of the 20 largest banks in America, and the stock is down over 75% in the last month. And I don't know, let me check in on it and see if it's also not doing well after hours. I saw some news about it come across me, people saying you shouldn't have deposits there anymore. So there's a run on this bank. And I guess they might be about to collapse. So stocks are down. Stocks were way down today, and they're down going into tomorrow. Gold is up a little, or was up a little, but and I'm looking at Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is still crashing under 20,000. Bitcoin is. It was up to around 25,000 at one point, back down to around 20K. So I don't know if it's related to the banking news. The crypto news is its own news. But anyway, here's a chart. SVB. So that's going on. Silicon Valley Bank. Let me see it. It is, like I said, trending on Twitter. Here are some of the Silicon Valley Bank is in trouble. It sold off a $21 billion bond portfolio for a huge loss. The stock was down 54% today. Here's somebody with a chart showing a bunch of red and how much banks were down today. So Silvergate, I'm not terrible at predicting some things. If you follow my blog, sometimes I write articles, but not to much acclaim or attention. But I did mention Silvergate Bank after I saw an article about how they weren't a good bank. I said, oh, this bank is probably going to go down. This crypto bank, Silvergate, they're in trouble. And now they are, I think, going out of business. So Silvergate went down. That caused a little crypto commotion because they were a bank that serviced cryptocurrency companies. But now SVB, Silicon Valley Bank, which, based on the name, invests in tech stuff. They were down in this chart 46%, but different people say different things. Some people are saying 65% today. So, and then all these other banks are down a lot too. PacWest was down 20%. First Republic Bank down 15%. Charles Schwab Corp down almost 9%. So we could be this could be the beginning of it. So just letting you know. Eventually I don't know, I've always said that we're going to have some kind of financial crisis eventually because the system is so messed up. So is this going to be the beginning of it? It certainly could be. It's a big bank. Top 20 sounds big to me. And that could cause a contagion. So that's what people are worried about. Stocks are down going into tomorrow. They're just trickling. They're just still headed lower. Stocks were down about 2% across the board today. NASDAQ down 2%. Dow Jones was down 1.66%. So it's a pretty big down day. And there was I think, bad payroll reports. And then people are convinced that Jerome Powell is going to keep hiking rates until the end of time. But if this stuff happens, if there is a collapse, if there is a systemic problem, then we know how they'll react to it. So if shit hits the fan, that's when the Fed will print money again. And that should cause Bitcoin and gold and stuff to go to the moon once they decide to do that. And it's the only way they know how to react to a financial crisis is basically by printing more money. So I think that is going to happen if there is a financial crisis. And it's totally possible based on our financial system just being precarious in general and susceptible to major problems. So this is the story with Silicon Valley Bank. So keep following that. That's major. Could develop into something super major. So I'll keep an eye on it. The Americans who got kidnapped in Mexico, and there was video of it and stuff, and 2 of them got killed by the cartels, they said. So an article came out today in the Daily Mail reviewing the history of the Americans who went down there. And the cover story is that somebody in the group, there were like 4 black guys with long criminal histories. Some of that criminal history being for drug manufacture, drug sales. So the Daily Mail published that with the idea that these guys weren't just there for a tummy tuck, basically. That's the implication, at least. They said they were going for a tummy tuck when they were caught in gang crossfire in Matamoros. So there's some pictures of the guys. Not that matters, but I mean, the fact that they were involved in drugs and stuff. So there's that guy. So these are the guys that ended up getting kidnapped and killed. So that happened. Then so this story came out. It might be drug related. They might have been trying to buy drugs or sell drugs. So that's possible. And then the Mexican cartel turned over who they said were the assassins or killers. So check this out. The 5 Gulf cartel assassins who kidnapped what they're calling the Tummy Tuck 4, killed 2 of them, were tied up and dumped in the street along with an apology note from the cartel, from the Gulf cartel. So the Gulf cartel caught the 5 guys they said were the assassins and turned them over to authorities and left an apology note with them. So the cartels are trying to, they want to keep up public relations. People like the cartels, some of them. They keep order and stuff. They have their own brand of justice. So, and they want to keep up good relations. They said it was a mistake and it wasn't them. Basically, it wasn't the Gulf cartel. It was some splinter group called the Scorpions Group. So there's a picture of them there and there, tied up with their hands tied up, their shirts pulled over their heads, and an apology note, which looks like this. So the cartel's note reads, the Gulf Cartel Scorpions Group strongly condemns the events of last Friday, March 3rd, where unfortunately an innocent working mother died and 4 American citizens were kidnapped, of which 2 died. So there you go. They apologized. They're sorry. So interesting story, huh? Okay, now let me get to the stuff that happened in the Twitter stuff today. Let's see. And I said Democrats hate free speech, right? They do because they hate. It's also Republicans turning on Tucker Carlson. So some of it has to do with the Twitter stuff. Some of it has to do with what they're doing to Tucker Carlson for presenting a different narrative about January 6th, which was distorted, but it was a distorted narrative that Tucker Carlson presented, but the reaction to it is insane. It's like, you can't do that. You can't present your own narrative, the Democrats say. So I agree. He showed the parts of January 6th that were the most benign and cast it in the least deadly insurrection light possible. Yes, he did. Tucker Carlson did that. It was it was spun. He took the 40,000 hours of footage or whatever. He could have taken the worst parts of it, the parts that showed people breaking stuff and hitting people, and said it was really bad, like the mainstream media did, and like the January 6th committee did. And then he could have taken stuff out of context to make people look bad, like Josh Hawley, like the Democrats did, and like the January 6th committee did. But instead, he took the parts that made it seem like it wasn't that bad. And he said the people who were saying it was really bad were lying. Then the complete and utter freakout of everybody, including Senate Republicans. They're like, oh, you can't say that. Like, you can't say that. You can't say that. Like, what's the difference between when Tucker says that it wasn't that bad and when somebody else says it was the worst thing ever? They're both distorting the facts. Why is it only one side is allowed to distort the facts? And then they completely panic if the other side decides to do the same thing. It's not different. People tell you, or they tell their audience, what their audience wants, what they think their audience wants to hear. People on the right think January 6th was like a fed up. That was like a sightseeing tour. That's what they think. And it's completely overplayed. So Tucker Carlson accurately reflected what people think with footage, real footage that also shows like Brian Sicknick didn't get killed by protesters. And that's crazy. That's true. It was already debunked. People are acting like, oh, that's disgracing the memory of Officer Sicknick. I don't even understand that. He died of a stroke, right? So the deadly insurrection narrative isn't true. And they said that. And nobody said, oh, they have to stop. Or like they shouldn't even be allowed to continue because they're distorting the facts. So it shows you one side can distort the facts however they want and show whatever narrative they want with their own cherry-picked stuff. But if somebody else says that, that's a problem. So here's something I didn't play. I think this is Thomas Massey calling for a further investigation to see if there are feds involved. Let me play that.
Thomas Massey serves in the Congress. He did then, he does now. He represents the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Congressman, thank you so much for coming on. I have never seen members of Congress accuse the other, I mean, there's usually a kind of fraternity in the Congress. You're all members of Congress, 435, accuse their colleagues unfairly without any evidence at all of committing felonies. What's your response to this, to the lying from your colleagues in the Congress?
You've exposed so many lies tonight with these tapes that it's changed my perception of what happened 2 years ago, and I was there. The tapes of people milling peacefully about. And my hat's off to your producers for sitting over there and going through hours of this.
Yes,
but I would love to unleash the resourcefulness of the American public on these videos. I think they should be released. You know, I think it's poppycock that they can't be released because of some security issues. Look, I'm the one who's supposed to be secured by these buildings, and I'm not worried about releasing them. They need to be released. In fact, there was a Rasmussen poll that just came out. This showed over 80%, 78% of Democrats and 86% of Republicans say that all the videos should be released. And they should, because as you said, Tucker, you didn't have facial recognition software there. We also we need a complete catalog of all of the feds who were there. Tell us
Right.
who they were. Let's
Exactly.
go, let's watch the videos and let's see what they did, because there's some really strange behavior on those videos of people behind the police lines in plain clothes, like touching them on the shoulder, talking in their
Right.
ear, walking up, around boundaries as if they weren't even there. It's very odd. I'm the one who asked Merrick Garland. I showed him the tape of Ray Epps. The Democrats didn't like it. I had to show it on an iPad for Merrick Garland to watch it. And then he refused to say how many feds were there. But that was also in the Rasmussen poll. 57% of Democrats think that it's
Yes.
at least somewhat likely that feds, agents of the federal government, were not just there, but were also encouraging people to riot or go into the Capitol.
It's very clear from the footage that our producers bravely slogged through for 3 weeks, and God bless them for doing it, that's exactly right, that federal agents encouraged the violence that day. We're just a TV show, and we can't show people without proof of who they really were. But I agree with your assessment completely. That obviously happened. Congressman Thomas Massie of Kentucky, thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Tucker, for getting this out there.
Yeah, I mean, if they did just release all the footage, and this is like I mentioned, WikiLeaks. I've seen criticism of WikiLeaks go like this: oh, they don't even vet the information they get; they just release it all, regardless of it exposes, I don't know, email addresses and sources and methods or whatever. When WikiLeaks gets information, they just publish it, and then. So let's say they did that with these tapes. If they published all of it, then any news organization, not just Tucker, anybody would be able to go through the tapes and create their own narratives based on the clips that they decide to cherry pick. Just like people did with the Podesta emails stuff. Yeah, you dig through it, you let everybody dig through it, and then anybody, any citizen journalist who has the time and a point of view can put down that point of view, can say, oh, this is why I think this, and this, or this is why I think that the shooting was staged or was a hoax or something. That's what people say. But they're so afraid of people doing that they won't ever release the footage so everybody could have access to it. Because that's the danger. It's like this true information thing is where we're at as far as censorship goes. The worst part of the censorship, and it happened with COVID, it happened with my channel on YouTube, is I did videos that were true, that were based on mainstream media, news reports, or stuff people were literally saying on Twitter, the actual people. And my channel got banned for true information. Just like they want to ban Tucker for showing real video. It's not like you showed real video. I mean, it's not like he didn't show real video. It's not like he doctored the footage, although they're accusing him of that. He showed real footage that proved his narrative. And just the fact that there is an alternative narrative is problematic to whoever's in control, I guess. Even the Senate Republicans who denounced Tucker Carlson for trying to, because he said January 6th isn't a big deal. That's the other narrative. He said January 6th wasn't a big deal and he has to be stopped. But the White House, from the podium, says the worst day in our history since the Civil War. That's completely hyperbolic and not true. I mean, like a lot of people would say, factually, it's not true based on all the things that have happened since the Civil War that could be considered threats to democracy compared to what happened at the Capitol. So that's a crazy, on its face, crazy, easily debunked by evidence statement that they made from the podium. January 6th was the worst day since the Civil War. And nobody's like goes, oh, you can't say that. Like, how can you say that about what was basically, a peaceful protest or whatever people want to say? Nobody screams like, "Oh, she can't take the podium anymore. We need to stop her from talking about it anymore. So we have to stop her from pushing this crazy narrative that's making Americans crazy and then they think all Republicans are insurrectionists and stuff. No, nobody stops them from pushing that narrative, like free speech, right? But that's why I say Democrats hate free speech. But apparently, not even just Democrats, even Rhino Republican senators. And who is it? Mitch McConnell. I think he was one of the ones who condemned it. He's in the hospital. He's got a concussion or something right now. So we wish him the best. Fell down, hit his head, apparently. So some people are making fun of him, which I think is inappropriate. I mean, considering that he hurt himself, he's concussed. I wonder if he's going to end up with one of those eye situations. What do you think? Is there a specific eye that it is? You know about that conspiracy theory, right? If you want to support the show, you can drop super chats, or you can go to buymeacoffee.com/lifttheveil, and you can leave coffees and a note, and I'll read it on the show. And that helps support the show. It helps encourage more shows like these in the future. So if you want to do that, we really appreciate it. You can also buy t-shirts at truthclothing.io. So yeah, that was the news from Tucker's coverage. And part of the reason I say Democrats hate free speech, they do. Like, what's the matter? I mean, just for me, like, I think people realize by now that I'm not super partisan, and I'm not going around saying January 6th wasn't something that should have happened. But what's the matter with somebody pushing a different narrative? Like, like, what's wrong with that? I don't understand. From a person who believes in people being able to present different sides, like, why are we not allowed to say, "Oh, it wasn't that bad"? You're literally not allowed to say it. Why can't they just say, "Oh, it was really bad"? Why don't they just say that? Tucker Carlson. This is what I would do if I was like a liberal and was like really wound up about January 6th. I'd be like, Tucker Carlson cherry picked clips to make it seem like January 6th was no big deal. Here are the worst clips from January 6th. People get beaten with hockey sticks and stuff. I mean, I've seen some bad clips. So I just put them together. So, okay, Tucker tried to mislead his gullible audience, by misrepresenting video that he should have gotten. But let me show you video we do have that shows how terrible January 6th was. Now look at these maniacs. What's wrong with that? Just say that. You have to say, "Oh, he needs to be stopped. We need to stop Tucker Carlson. We need to make sure he doesn't show any more video." I haven't had an argument about stuff. That's the problem. Like, you can't, like, people, I don't know if they forgot how, because I would know how to do it. I've seen bad video from January 6th. Spread it on Twitter. Get people riled up. Oh, Tucker Carlson is the worst. What a liar. Look how he's misrepresenting things. But no, shut it down. Don't let him speak. Fox News can't make any more money anymore. They can't tell their viewers what their viewers want to hear. Just like we tell our viewers what they want to hear. It's okay for us to just try to make money by grifting off of Trump derangement syndrome. But if somebody else tries to say that Trump wasn't bad, then, oh my God, how can they say that? All right, I'll show you a clip of. It looks like Marjorie Taylor Greene. Big story. Few big stories. Twitter stories are huge. Twitter files are huge. Obviously, the Hunter Biden thing in and of itself is a gigantic, enormous story about government interference with speech, just government interference with speech, government interference with the press, of all things. Huge. Just that part of the Twitter files is huge. Then all the other stuff revealed a lot, turned into congressional hearings. That's a big story. The story about COVID being created in a lab, it's a huge, huge story. If they can get people to accept it, and because of our complicity in creating it, because we were involved, the United States. So no matter where it goes, if it was made in that Chinese lab, the United States played a role in creating it. And then the United States played a role in covering it up. So there were hearings about that. I'll play this clip. I haven't even heard this clip. I'll play this clip because this apparently shows that Fauci created the virus and then lied about it. Let me play this.
Dr. Redfield, did you agree, in your opinion, with Dr. Anderson's assessment at the time that this virus did look engineered?
I was concerned because of the presence of the furin cleavage site that we've talked about. And I think it's important to understand what that cleavage site does. That cleavage site totally changes the orientation of the binding domain of COVID. So it now, which could not see the ACE2 receptor, which is the human receptor, it totally changes the orientation now, so it has high affinity for a human receptor. So that furin cleavage site bothered me. It didn't seem that it belonged there. And then when you look at the sequences that it used, and it's beyond the committee, but I know many of you have looked into it, the sequences that they used in those 12 nucleotides for arginine were the arginine sequences, nucleotide triplet, that coded for the human arginine. So why did this virus have the arginine sequences for human there, not bat? It was very disconcerting to me. It looked like this virus was engineered.
Was this what you're observing and speaking of? Is this something that would be in line with gain of function research and the capabilities it would provide to the virus?
Yeah, I mean, basically this lab published in 2014 that they accomplished in this allowing the coronaviruses that they were working with in the lab to bind to the ACE2 receptor in humanized mice. And the only way they did that was by reorienting the binding domain.
And it was clear to them at this time that that was likely the issue in their private conversations. Yet by February 4th, a paper on the origins of COVID is drafted by 4 participants of the February 1 conference call. One of those participants, Dr. Anderson, completely reverses himself in an email to the president of EcoHealth, Peter Daszak, and says the main crackpot theories going around at the moment relate to this virus being somehow engineered, and that is demonstrably false. My question to you, Mr. Redfield, did you know of any evidence that they had found within 3 days from February 1st to February 4th to be able to confirm that it was not created in a lab?
As I mentioned earlier, unfortunately, I was excluded from those conversations, which I found retroactively very disappointed, since I was obviously a virologist and very engaged. And I actually had asked Jeremy Farrar, Tony Fauci, and Tedros to have these conversations. And then to be excluded, I found unusual. I do think it illustrates one point that's worth really focusing on. When you have a group of people that decide there can only be one point of view, that's problematic. And I'll keep going saying it's antithetical to science. And unfortunately, that's what they did.
I can tell you, Dr. Redfield, that is the case. It's very problematic because how people suffered in this country from those, what I would call tyrannical decisions, using their positions of power and shutting down the country in the way they did. I think people definitely do feel that way. Thank you. I yield back.
All right, there you go. So there's some stories about the virus. Yeah. So it's manufactured. He knew that. Even though he's not perfect. I think Dr. Redfield, somebody pointed out that Dr. Redfield said that if we all wore masks, that the pandemic would be over in a couple weeks, something like that. So everybody can be wrong, though. You know what I mean? Like, I was wrong. I thought some people were saying masks worked, so I thought they did too. So I don't blame him. He seems, at least he's always been fairly straightforward about telling the truth about the origins of the virus and the fact that it appeared to be man-made and stuff. So that's a good thing. But yeah, he doesn't have a perfect record. I saw somebody mention the LA Times. I have that story. So just so you know, I have that story. I have the race war stories. Every show can have different sections. Well, so we can cover the trans war and the race war in different sections of every show. So we will cover the race war that happened. Yeah, then the LA Times. White people are killing you. I'll tell you. I'll tell you guys that. It's a good one. White people are so bad. All right. Speaking of white people, we had two great white men, I'll say. At least Matt Taibbi. I like Schellenberger too. He's cool. Schellenberger's into nuclear power. These are guys that are left. So I identify, like if I identify more with people like Matt Taibbi, Glenn Greenwald, maybe Michael Schellenberger, Jimmy Dore, a lot of ways, and stuff like that. So I identify with people like Matt Taibbi politically, but he's gone. He's become a lot more conservative and has a conservative on his podcast too now. So anyway, let me play you his opening statement. They were in front of Congress. So if I can be critical of my fellow journalists, they say it's not cool to call yourself a journalist anymore because it has such a bad stink to it, saying you're a journalist. So people don't even do that anymore, apparently, on the right. So Matt Taibbi is a journalist. I comment on things. Matt Taibbi is a journalist who's written books and won awards, and they just treated him like shit today. So I'll play his opening statement, and I'll play the clips I have from them speaking and them being attacked. Both of those. Oh, I have an interesting story. I have an interesting story about grooming or like right-wing malfeasance, gay malfeasance. I'll play that for you too. That's going to come up here at the end of the show. Thanks, Mason Turner, who says, have a poll for who wants to sleep with Marjorie Taylor Greene. You know that Alex Stein did, right? I think, based on the text messages I saw, Laura Loomer exposed that, I think. They got some text messages. It looks like our friend Alex Stein did have a liaison of some sort, maybe with Marjorie Taylor Greene. But are we going to do a poll about whether we would bang her? I don't know. Only if it's compared to somebody else. That poll from yesterday, it was very important to reveal like what people really think. That was an important poll. I know not everybody thought so, but it was a real like social. I can even talk about it more. It's still meaningful to me. It's still crazy. I don't know if all those people are all those people gay because they said they'd have sex with a man. And they say they're straight. What do you guys think? All right, let me play some of this. Matt Taibbi's opening statement from the Twitter hearings today, which were very important. Oh, I was going to be critical of people. Yeah, I want to be critical of the friends of ours on the left, or who consider themselves like independent left-wing media. There's a few of them. I won't mention their names. But it's people who hang out with like, I won't mention people on that consider themselves left and independent. When the Twitter files came out, they were like, "Oh, the Twitter files. It's no big deal. It's a limited hangout." It's like Elon Musk. Oh, they're just covering up for Elon Musk. This is nothing. It's not important. Everybody should like basically ignore it. Meanwhile, I was covering it. I was like, "Oh, this seems important." Even if I don't know, people just hate anything that gets attention or when other journalists get the story. I don't know if these people were jealous of Matt Taibbi and Glenn. Oh, Glenn wasn't even involved in this stuff. Barry Weiss and Michael Schellenberger, that they got the story. If that's why they were commenting that way, but a bunch of people, including I think like Whitney Webb, who's a big enough star that I can punch up. Okay? Including her, I'm pretty sure we're like, oh, the Twitter files up. No, whatever. The Twitter files. It's all, you guys are just falling for a limited hangout. No, I really, the fact that it resulted in these Twitter hearings makes it worthwhile. And they did expose. Like, I don't know. I don't know where people get off saying that. And if it just comes from a negative place. Seemed like a big story to me. And I pretty much respect people who put out the information. I mean, everybody's flawed. But anyway, here's the opening statement from Matt Taibbi. I'll play it for you.
Chairman Jordan, Ranking Member Plaskett, members of the Select Committee, thank you for having me today. My name is Matt Taibbi. I've been a reporter for 30 years and a staunch advocate of the First Amendment. Much of that time was spent at Rolling Stone magazine. Ranking Member Plaskett, I'm not a so-called journalist. I've won the National Magazine Award, the I.F. Stone Award for Independent Journalism, and I've written 10 books, including 4 New York Times bestsellers. I'm now the editor of the online magazine Racket on the independent platform Substack. I'm here today because of a series of events that began late last year when I received a note from a source online. It read, "Are you interested in doing a deep dive into what censorship and manipulation was going on at Twitter?" A week later, the first of what became known as the Twitter Files reports came out. To say these attracted intense public interest would be an understatement. My computer looked like a Vegas slot machine as just the first tweet about the blockage of the Hunter Biden laptop story registered 143 million impressions and 30 million engagements. But it wasn't until a week after the first report, after Michael Schellenberger, Barry Weiss, and other researchers joined the search of the files, that we started to grasp the significance of this story. The original promise of the internet was that it might democratize the exchange of information globally. A free internet would overwhelm all attempts to control information flow, its very existence a threat to anti-democratic forms of government everywhere. What we found in the files was a sweeping effort to reverse that promise and use machine learning and other tools to turn the internet into an instrument of censorship and social control. Unfortunately, our own government appears to be playing a lead role. We saw the first hints in communications between Twitter executives before the 2020 election, when we read things like "flagged by DHS" or "please see attached report from FBI for potential misinformation." This would be attached to an Excel spreadsheet with a long list of names whose accounts were often suspended shortly after. Again, Ranking Member Plaskett, I would note that the evidence of Twitter-government relationship includes lists of tens of thousands of names on both the left and right. The people affected include Trump supporters, but also left-leaning sites like Consortium and Truthout, the leftist South American channel Telesur, the Yellow Vest movement. That, in fact, is a key point of the Twitter files, that it's neither a left nor right issue. Following the trail of communications between Twitter and the federal government across tens of thousands of emails led to a series of revelations. Mr. Chairman, we summarized and submitted them to the committee in the form of a new Twitter files thread, which was also released to the public this morning. We learned Twitter, Facebook, Google, and other companies developed a formal system for taking in moderation requests from every corner of government, from the FBI, the DHS, the HHS, DOD, the Global Engagement Center at State, even the CIA. For every government agency scanning Twitter, there were perhaps 20 quasi-private entities doing the same thing, including Stanford's Election Integrity Partnership, NewsGuard, the Global Disinformation Index, and many others, many taxpayer-funded. A focus of this fast-growing network, as Mike noted, is making lists of people whose opinions, beliefs, associations, or sympathies are deemed misinformation, disinformation, or malinformation. That last term is just a euphemism for true but inconvenient. Undeniably, the making of such lists is a form of digital McCarthyism. Ordinary Americans are not just being reported to Twitter for de-amplification or deplatforming, but to firms like PayPal, digital advertisers like Xandr, and crowdfunding sites like GoFundMe. These companies can and do refuse service to law-abiding people and businesses whose only crime is falling afoul of a distant, baseless, unaccountable, algorithmic judge. As someone who grew up a traditional ACLU liberal, this mechanism for punishment and deprivation without due process is horrifying. Another troubling aspect is the role of the press, which should be the people's last line of defense in such cases. But instead of investigating these groups, journalists partnered with them. If Twitter declined to remove an account right away, government agencies and NGOs would call reporters for the New York Times, Washington Post, and other outlets, who in turn would call Twitter demanding to know why action had not yet been taken. Effectively, news media became an arm of a state-sponsored thought policing system. I'm running out of time, so I'll just sum up and say, it's just not possible to instantly arrive at truth. It is, however, possible, becoming technologically possible to instantly define and enforce a political consensus online, which I believe is what we're looking at. This is a grave threat to people of all political persuasions. The First Amendment, an American population accustomed to the right to speak, is the best defense left against the censorship industrial complex. If the latter can knock over our first and most important constitutional guarantee, these groups will have no serious opponent left anywhere. If there's anything the Twitter files show, it's that we're in danger of losing this most precious right, without which all democratic rights are impossible. Thank you for the opportunity to appear, and I'd be happy to answer any questions from the committee.
Okay, so there's Matt's opening testimony. I think he said like a state-sponsored thought control system, something like that. And here's Michael Schellenberger. Michael Schellenberger, who I voted for governor of California, because he supports nuclear power and he's got some ideas about solving the homeless problem. He ran, I believe, as a Democrat. California is a weird state. In California, when we pick, like, we're going to have a governor race coming up, I think. I don't know when. But when we have the race, the way they pick candidates here, the top two candidates in California, is the top two vote getters. Everybody's, it's like an open primary, and everybody can run, and you can vote on anybody. And then the top two face off, regardless of whether they're Democrat or Republican. So odds are it could just be two Democrats. So I guess that's why, even if you're opposed, which is kind of, it's an interesting system. It allows people who are opposed to Gavin Newsom to run as a Democrat. Yeah, because, you know, California is still more likely to vote Democrat overall. So you can run as a Democrat, but have different beliefs than the mainstream Democrats. So that's what Schellenberger did. And yeah, he supports nuclear power. I support nuclear power for sure. I believe in it. And also I'm concerned about homelessness and stuff. He's a pretty smart guy. Here's his take. Play that.
Very disturbing, because what they're doing when they're putting these labels on there is they're actually also trying to discredit you. So it's not just, it's a form of censorship, but it's also a disinformation campaign. And I think what Matt said is really important to understand. I mean, you go from a situation where we were fighting ISIS recruiting, and then it was Russian disinformation. And now they're in a situation where they're wanting to censor true information, accurate facts, because they're worried that people might behave in ways that they don't want them to. That involves mind reading at a level that is grossly inappropriate. I mean, I worry even about making this defense, because let's remember, the First Amendment protects our right to be wrong. Mm-hmm. It protects our right to lie. I mean, it's bizarre to me that we would need to make a defense of the First Amendment and remind people that we have a right to be wrong. And being wrong, as Matt was explaining, is a big part of being a human being and having a democracy. So this is
good call, Bad Man Elite. Good call. I would have never noticed. There's Jason Goodman in the background. That is Jason Goodman back there. God, he's got so much money to travel around. He's like Don't even ask. I don't even know exactly what Jason Goodman is. I just know he seems to have an unlimited budget to do citizen reporting, and he gets he gets fewer people than me tuned into his show. He's on his 10th channel. I don't know what he's doing, but that's just good. And he speaks fluent Ukrainian too. Jason Goodman. So there he is. Okay, I'll play the rest of this. That was funny. Thanks for that, Batman Elite.
Disturbing and chilling, and you're absolutely right to be outraged by it. There needs to be a full truth and reconciliation that I hope everybody would appreciate having on this issue, because a lot of bad behavior has come out about what they've done.
So that guy voted.
Gentleman's time is expired.
So that guy voted for Biden. You would think, I'm traditionally, I have a lot of values that would make me traditionally a Democrat, and I'm concerned about free speech, like what I thought was a traditionally left-wing issue, just like Matt Taibbi and Michael Schellenberger. It's like I would be. I don't even care. I don't even like to normally say, oh, Democrats are so evil, because I don't like a lot of Republicans either. So I don't like to just say, oh, Democrats are terrible. But literally, they have two guys in front of them. You haven't heard what they say yet. They have two guys in front of them who could be allies and would be really concerned about left-wing people getting censored, and mention that some of the censorship involved left-wing people. And like I said, Schellenberger is on the stand. He voted for Biden. Oh, do I not have? All right, here's a few things. Damn, I didn't get. I thought I had the Democrat making her opening statement about Matt Taibbi. That was so terrible. Let me see. I do have it somewhere. Let's see. Here. Okay. I have the Democrat just talking shit about Taibbi. And then they tried to get Taibbi to reveal his sources explicitly, and then claimed that that's not what they were doing. They tried to make him reveal his sources, which a journalist doesn't have to give to the government. They kept trying to get him to do that. But here is, oh, okay, this is just a short clip. Let's see. Here.
It's funny when people have to go through that. Exactly. This is unacceptable. I'm ready for it. I don't know if a lot of other people are, but just as it was unacceptable for Kevin McCarthy to provide 41,000 hours of sensitive security footage to a biased talking head in an effort to rewrite what happened on January 6th. This is a new Republican playbook, apparently. Risk American safety and security to score political points.
The gentlelady's word should be struck. We do not accuse witnesses of threatening others. That is out of line and outside the rules of this committee.
That, and I can have an
You don't get to determine what's struck down.
Well, you do get an opening statement, and it's
and
about,
so let
it's
me
about
finish.
over.
It's funny
There you
when
go.
people have to.
So she basically said, they said that Matt Taibbi was like a threat. Matt Taibbi and Michael Schellenberger were put in a document to ask Twitter to give over any background checks they'd done on Matt Taibbi or Schellenberger. I think Barry Weiss too. They cited, the U.S. government cited specific journalists. Is targeting specific journalists. And it's what's so, it is crazy to me, because these people are not Republican operatives, and they're being targeted as if they are. and it's people that would vote for Democrats. It's a guy that did vote for, the guy voted for Biden, and they're like talking to him like he's a piece of crap. Like they're like a threat, and that somehow they're right-wing operatives working on behalf of Elon Musk. It was just disgraceful what happened at this hearing. Here's a good one where one of the Democrats claim that the Twitter files didn't show one instance of government censorship of lawful speech. And then that gets shot down quickly. So this is a good one.
And even with Twitter, you cannot find actual evidence of any direct government censorship of any lawful speech. And when I say lawful, I mean non-criminal speech, because plenty of speech is non-criminal.
I'll give you one. Gentleman's time to expire. I'd ask unanimous consent to enter into the record the following email from Clark Humphrey, Executive Office of the Presidency, White House Office, January 23rd, 2021. That's the Biden administration, 4:39 a.m. Hey, folks. This goes to Twitter. Hey, folks, wanted to use the term they used the term Mr. Goldman just used. Wanted to flag the below tweet, and I'm wondering if we can get moving on the process for having it removed ASAP.
Boom.
That is.
Could you read the below tweet?
And then if we can keep an eye out for tweets that fall in this same genre, that would be great. This is a tweet on the very issue that Thomas.
Can you just, for the fullness of the record, can you read because I've not seen this. Can you read the tweet that it's referencing?
I don't have the tweet here with me, but the gentleman's point was, tell us, you said no time did government try to tell Twitter to take that, to explicitly remove something. And
no, I said explicitly remove lawful speech. Lawful speech. We're going to conflate. The First Amendment is not absolute.
Twitter, this is something from Robert Kennedy Jr.
But for the record,
I assume that's lawful
it's a point
speech.
of order, Mr. Chair.
Because Robert Kennedy Jr. said it? That's why it's lawful speech.
Just a minute, Mr. Goldman.
But all I'm saying is you said in no time did the government explicitly say to take a tweet down. Here we have it right here from the White House. They couldn't even wait 2 days. 2 days into this administration, they were asked Twitter to take something down, and we will get you the underlying tweet.
Thank you.
With that, I recognize the gentlelady from New York.
Will you place it into the record as well, sir? The underlying tweet?
Robert Kennedy Jr. Is talking about he's talking about Hank Aaron's death after he received the vaccine. That's what the tweet's about. We'll get you a copy.
Thank you.
I would say one thing. That's certainly lawful.
Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent to enter the tweet that you referenced into the record of the committee.
Without objection, we'll enter that into the record along with the statement from the White House.
Are you allowed to criticize? By the way, I was just looking. I have a story. We're going to get into the race war and hair, racial hair. I was going to say, can you criticize her for appropriating Caucasian hair? Because I know that's not her natural hair. That's not the way that's not the way it would look. So is that cultural appropriation? I know it's a whole discussion, right, among Black people. Oh, you have natural hair. You don't have natural hair. But still, is it? Because Black people don't naturally have hair like that, I have to say. She is a mean person too, so I just want to be mean to her, and also I want to create racial tension. So those are some of the stories. I mean, it was just to listen to. It's just terrible. These people, I would be amenable. Like I wouldn't even say I'm never going to vote for a Democrat, because I liked like Tulsi Gabbard. If she was a Democrat, now she's never going to be a Democrat. She denounced the Democrats. But like, if they cared about free speech or something, like if one person cared about free speech and was nice to these left-wing journalists, but they just abused them and were so just awful. So. All right, that's the story from the Twitter hearing that happened this morning. You guys got it, the gist of it. It was, great. It appeared, it was great. It's great that they have hearings about this stuff. Very important issues. Government censorship of speech. Couldn't get more important than that. Matt Taibbi and Michael Schellenberger think it's the biggest story of their careers. The biggest story that there is. How the government and NGOs coordinate to censor people. All right, you ready for the race war stuff? This is so stupid. People are so stupid. Here's actually, do I have the tweet, first of all, from the LA Times? It actually got fact checked. I'll show you. I think they updated the headline because originally it was white people, but let me see. Here's what it says in the LA Times today. White drivers are polluting the air breathed by LA's people of color. And then the article says how white and affluent drivers are polluting the air breathed by LA's people of color. Let me run a archive on this and see if they actually changed the headline. The blowback is predictable. People accusing them of anti-white racism. Okay. So they did update the headline, I figured. Here's the original headline right here. And I don't know if they made any other changes. This was the original headline. White drivers are polluting the air breathed by LA's people of color. And I saw the statistics. LA is like 50% Hispanic. I didn't even know. I still thought it was a lot of white people there. It's only 25% white people, apparently. Or, exclusively white in LA. And it's about 50% Hispanic. And everybody drives. So the study is so crazy. It's from some climate alarmist institute, something called Boiling Point. It was originally published in a climate change newsletter called Boiling Point. The article is written by a white person who feels guilty that they drive on the 10 freeway and the 10 freeway goes through bad neighborhoods. I mean, this is literally the story, if you want to believe it. So that's what the original headline was. They did update the headline. Now the headline says how white and affluent drivers are polluting the air breathed by LA's people of color. How white and affluent, so not just white people, but also rich people who are also should be targeted for driving on the freeway. So, and this is the story. White people have to drive on freeways that go through bad neighborhoods where people of color live. But apparently LA is mostly people of color anyway. So in case it's crazy thought that big major freeways, that neighborhoods next to major freeways are crap neighborhoods where poor people live, and poor people are still disproportionately people of color, maybe due to systemic racism, but now just due to the fact that people with money don't want to live near freeways. So because you drive on the freeway and it goes through a bad neighborhood, you must feel guilty. And eventually it's there's 15-minute city stuff in here too, kind of. There is some of that. So some of this is 15-minute city stuff too. White people shouldn't even be driving. People shouldn't even be driving. Freeways are bad. I don't even know. It's freeways go through bad neighborhoods. That's what they could have put as their headline. people, the neighborhoods around freeways are not desirable to live in. So that's it. That's the whole story. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Are they trying to tell people like who believes this stuff? It did get fact checked on Twitter. I'll see. The fact check isn't up right now. I refresh it. There was a community note that said it was a false claim. It's just based on this crazy. It doesn't have the community notes. I've seen it with community notes on Twitter where they say it's false. But that's the whole story. I mean, literally, like that's the thesis of it. It doesn't even, the only solution it suggests is congestion taxes, like what you would have for 15-minute cities, is like charging people more to drive on highways or something because black people live near highways or people of color. Give me a break. Okay, so that's one story in the racial, in the race war news, and then the other story in the race war news is from none other than Colin Kaepernick, who said his white adoptive parents were racist. Check out this story. So this ingrate, like this guy, Colin Kaepernick, his dad was black, apparently. His mom was white, and his dad bailed while the mother was pregnant. So that's the story of his conception, and his father who bailed on him. And that's the black part of his heritage. Then he was adopted, but you would think lovingly, by two white parents who didn't care that he was mixed race, and that he wasn't their son. Why were they racist? Well, one day, Colin Kaepernick came home and said he wanted to get cornrows like Allen Iverson. This is the story. And apparently it's being told in like some kind of comic strip or something. He's got a comic book about his upbringing called Change the Game. He said he wanted to get cornrows like Allen Iverson. And in this picture, I guess he's got cornrows, right? His white parents who adopted him at like 5 weeks old, raised him as their own, cared for him. They were racist because he wanted cornrows, and they said that if he got cornrows, he'd look like a little thug, they said. They said if he got cornrows, he'd look like a little thug. And he thought that was racist at the time. So what do you think? You decide. I understand that sometimes white people, or sometimes people do use thug in a way that could be kind of racist. I mean, I think so sometimes, but sometimes I don't think so. Sometimes I think people use it to be descriptive, like where they would describe certain black people as looking like thugs, but they certainly wouldn't describe other black people as looking like thugs. And they could, and they might very well describe white people as looking like thugs. But I understand there is like a racial tinge to that word where people say it, saying that is like a racial dog whistle or what have you. I get that. But were they wrong? I mean, is it like, what is this thing? You can't discriminate. Literally in California, you can't discriminate over hair, right? So that means, like, let's say you're an employer and you don't want to hire a guy with dreadlocks or an afro because you don't think it's professional, right? And his parents said it wasn't professional. It didn't look professional. That's what they said to him. They're like, oh, it doesn't look professional to have cornrows. And there he is with cornrows. And it does look kind of, I don't know, a little thuggish. You could argue. Like, were they just looking out for him? I mean, really? And so, and then this is true though, in California specifically, and then I think in other places too. you can't discriminate based on ethnic hairstyle, which is cool because actually when I was a kid, and this is like there has been real discrimination. So when I was a kid, my best friend was the weird Sikh kid who wore a turban. Okay. And Sikh, they wear a turban, they don't cut their hair, it's part of their religion. They have to wear it all the time. And he was discriminated against at a roller rink where they told him he had to take off because they had a no hats policy, that he had to take off his turban, which is like obviously it's like religious discrimination. It would never happen now, right? Now they say, of course you wear the hijab or whatever. But at the time, that was real, genuine discrimination over ethnic hair. Just totally real. And it was really bad at the time. But this other stuff, you just think it's kind of, I don't know. Like you can't say somebody can't have dreadlocks, even if you think that it's not professional looking or what have you, or that they can't have an afro, because you'd be discriminating on a racial basis. And so there you go. That's the story about that hair. And that's why I brought up the hair of that lady in the committee who is appropriating Caucasian style hair. So anyway, that's the race war crap. I can't believe that guy. Like how his parents, white parents adopt. How does that headline go? White parents adopt unwanted mixed race child. Right? A while ago, before that was like the coolest thing to do. White parents adopt unwanted mixed race child. Then they're declared racist. Like many years later, they're called racist after raising the child to become an NFL quarterback. Like giving him a stable home life so they could go pursue his dreams and become an NFL star. And then get all kinds of commercial endorsements and stuff. And look how far he's come in his life. And then he turns around and just says they were racist. What an ingrate. So that's that racial tension story. I have there are a few stories about DeSantis. Oh, here. I'm not going to say I was more enthusiastic about DeSantis, but there are some reasons I do like him better than some other candidates, put it that way. But he's got issues too, especially because he's kind of authoritarian and he goes after speech, what he calls hate speech, in ways that I don't agree with. But anyway, I'm curious about whether he has a chance against Donald Trump. I think he does. It's like dead even, the betting odds between Trump and DeSantis for president. So we're looking for clues as to whether DeSantis has a chance or not. Some people say he doesn't have a chance because Donald Trump is polling so well. Here's a story about his book. His book just came out and it's selling really well, apparently. Ron DeSantis' memoir sold more copies in its first week than books by Trump, Obama, and Hillary Clinton. So it's a pretty popular book. People are reading it. I haven't read it yet. I should, right? Journalist. If I was a real journalist, I'd have to read the book. But I got an idea about who Ron DeSantis is. So that's a DeSantis story. Ron DeSantis is doing something that I appreciate right now and is more aligned on COVID issues and the vaccine with me than Trump is, because Trump still says the vaccine was great and everything. And DeSantis is making an effort so that Djokovic can play tennis in the United States. Right now, Djokovic is not allowed to come to the United States because he's not vaccinated. And we still have a policy for international travelers that they can't come into the United States without being vaccinated. It's crazy. We're the last ones. So DeSantis says he's going to try to get Djokovic in to play a tennis tournament in Miami by shipping him in on a boat. And he specifically asked Biden to give him permission. So he's trying to skirt the rules somehow by bringing him in on a boat so we can play in the Miami Open. So that's cool. I like tennis. It's just insane what they did to Djokovic, especially since he's won more majors than anyone, or he's tied. He wins on hard courts. He won in Australia. He would have a very good chance of winning the US Open. And they're going to deny him entry still. Like, now the pandemic's over. The state of emergency is going to be over. So I think it's official that he can't play in the US Open already, I think, because of the rules. But they're going to try to get him in to play some tennis. So I appreciate that. I appreciate that from DeSantis. Okay, now finally this. And if you want to support the show, I won't be able to take calls today because I gave you guys a lot of content, to be honest. If you want to support the show, go to buymeacoffee.com/lifttheveil. They won't take 30%, and you can leave a note. Okay, this is the last piece of news. This is a guy recounting unwanted sexual advances from the chair of CPAC. So apparently, the chair of CPAC is a homo, which is okay with me, but he's a molesting homo, which is not okay for either kind of sexual orientation. There are people on both sides that molest people. In this case, it's an adult, but here's a story. This is a story about the CPAC chair. This is apparently Matt Schlapp. This guy's given testimony about how he sexually assaulted him in the car. So I'll play that for you. This is being shared by a left-wing source, but this is Herschel Walker staffer Carlton Huffman. Details allegations that he was sexually assaulted by CPAC chair Matt Schlapp. So there you go. For the side that talks about groomers all the time. Here's
evening as Matt began to drink Tito's vodka heavily, and it did not seem weird or menacing at first. And after we left the Capitol Grill in Buckhead, we drove to Manuel's Tavern because he wanted to go to a bar that was a bit more lively. And while thinking that was a little bit weird and definitely unusual in the context of my past interactions with VIPs, I ended up just getting him there, and it seemed like it was, like I said, different, but it definitely got very different and definitely not normal. Throughout the course of the evening, he intruded into my personal space. He definitely bumped into me. Funny note, Matt, for someone who claims to stand for the Second Amendment, I am amazed at the fact that you did not know what a Sig Sauer was whenever you bumped into it. I did everything that I could to indicate that I was not interested in anything with Matt. I angled myself away from him and even was looking at the TV so intently that he made a point of asking me, "Do you have a problem looking at me?" It was at that point that I knew that things were taking a turn. And it was my hope that upon exiting that place and getting Matt into the car, that on our way back to the hotel, that things would stay normal. And it was a hope that was quickly extinguished. In the course of that evening, as we drove, Matt's hand never left my leg for just about the entire drive. And as we got close to the Hilton Garden Inn, shortly before midnight, it was at that point that he reached over and grabbed me where you should not be grabbed whenever you don't want to be. It is to my eternal shame that in that moment, I let him take my voice from me and take my dignity. And I did not say anything at the time beyond just thinking, what in the world is happening to me? And just in all of it, I just was eager to just get away. I, at that time, kept silent because to me, the values that I hold were more important at the time, that there was a larger cause that.
Yeah. Somebody's saying, yeah, but people are making fun of him. Yeah, I know some of it's partisan. Some people have partisan opinions. They're like, oh, he maybe got paid off or something to smear Republicans. But what do they say? Me Too, we believe all women. In this case, he's like a woman because he got sexually assaulted by a man. So we'll say believe all sexual abuse victims normally. But I tend to say, but weird that he said, oh, and then I just like let it happen. What did he say? What did he mean? He was like, oh, well, then I didn't do anything about it. Oh yeah, I'd let him give me a handy, or like, what was he trying to imply? That he let him, that, I don't know. Some people. So there's that guy's story. So deviancy can happen from either side for sure. For sure. There can be groomers that are Republicans. They can be in the church. It's not just liberals. And there are sexually aggressive men all over. So the poll, I put up a poll that said, who would you rather? Because people were asking for it. Because people were asking about Marjorie Taylor Greene. And so I just put up a poll between Marjorie Taylor Greene and AOC to see if people would set aside their political differences to just go for whether people would just say, oh, I'll just go for the younger one or the one with the big Latina booty. At first, people did set aside their politics and vote for AOC. But since then, we've had some Marjorie Taylor Greene fans show up and the polling is even. Or actually, Marjorie Taylor Greene just pulled ahead. So AOC was winning this poll early on. But now Marjorie Taylor Greene has pulled ahead by 2 points. It's 51-49. So there you go. That's what people say. But Don Lemon would have said that Marjorie Taylor Greene is past her prime and AOC is not yet, although she's close. By sexist standards, or no, by childbearing standards. That's what Don Lemon should have said. Okay, yeah. But what he said was so ridiculous because you can't even, what Don Lemon said was so ridiculous because you can't even run for president while you're in your sexually reproductive prime, because you can't even run for president until you're 35. And they say for your physical prime, as far as like sexual reproduction, that's probably between 20 and 35 or something. So that guy, he's crazy. He's like, oh, she's past her prime to be president. Isn't she like 50 something? Like, what is he, crazy? When are you going to be president? You can't be president when you're 25, when you're your peak physical attractiveness for Don Lemon, caddy Don Lemon. All right, I'll check my coffees, and then we'll log out. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in for the show. Thanks, people who support the show. Thanks for the super chats. Appreciate it. Super appreciate that. And thanks someone who bought a coffee and didn't leave a note. Thanks someone else who bought 3 coffees and said, any old sexual gratification is probably not the goal in life. I wonder what that means. Probably any old sexual gratification is probably not the goal in life. I hope not. I hope not. I hope not. So, not sure if that's a critical comment. Any old sexual gratification should not be the goal in life. That's true. But we still have polls just for fun sometimes. All right, guys. Talk to you guys later. See if we can do the show tomorrow, same time, or maybe earlier if I can get it together. For now, it's at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Someone said I should start before Tim Pool, so I'll see. All right, today we did a show. That's good. All right, thanks, everybody. We'll see you at the next one. For now, that's what it is.